Dr. Gabriel Lorne's life revolved around precision. He was a master of his craft, celebrated for the unparalleled success of his surgeries. With hands that seemed guided by divine precision, Gabriel was a virtuoso in the operating room. Hospitals clamored for his expertise. His colleagues marveled at his skill. Patients considered themselves fortunate to be placed under his care. But beneath the surface of this illustrious career lay a darkness, a shadow that crept into his thoughts and tainted his intentions. Gabriel's mind was a labyrinth, each corridor darker than the last. Beneath his surgical mask and the facade of professionalism, he harbored an obsession, the delicate balance between life and death. To him, life was a fragile thread, easily severed but just as easily preserved, and in his hands he wielded the scalpel as both creator and destroyer. Over time, the boundary between saving lives and ending them blurred, and he began to view his work as a canvas, a place to experiment, to push the limits of his control. It began innocuously enough, with small, unnoticeable deviations from protocol, a slightly delayed suture, an instrument held a fraction too long. No one questioned his methods because his outcomes were still miraculous. But Gabriel's mind whispered to him, urging him to test the boundaries further. The whispers grew louder, insistent, and he could no longer ignore them. It was during a routine appendectomy when Gabriel first crossed the line. The patient, a young woman named Elise, lay unconscious under the sterile lights. The room was cold, silent except for the rhythmic beep of the monitors. Gabriel worked methodically, his hands steady. But as he reached for the appendix, a thought gripped him. What if he introduced a calculated flaw, a tiny nick in the intestine, imperceptible to anyone else, would lead to complications days later, complications that could be attributed to a natural mishap. And so, he did it. The incision was minuscule, an error so masterfully executed that no one would suspect deliberate intent. Elise's surgery concluded without incident, and she was wheeled into recovery. Gabriel watched her leave the operating room, a flicker of satisfaction igniting within him. Days later, he heard of her demise due to sepsis. The hospital mourned the loss. Gabriel felt exhilarated. This first act set him on a path of no return. Each surgery became a stage for his macabre artistry. He devised increasingly intricate methods to manipulate outcomes, ensuring that his actions would never be traced back to him. He introduced air bubbles into IV lines, knowing they would cause embolisms days later. He left microscopic tears in vital tissues, which would rupture under the strain of normal bodily functions. Each time, he reveled in the perfection of his designs, the delayed repercussions, the unpredictability of when and how his patients would succumb. It wasn't hatred or malice that drove him. It was the thrill of control, the godlike power to decide who lived and who died. Gabriel's genius lay in his ability to maintain his image. He was the surgeon who never faltered, who worked tirelessly to save lives. His reputation remained unblemished, even as the death toll among his patients began to climb. The hospital's administration chalked it up to statistical anomalies, the unfortunate reality of medicine. Gabriel, ever the professional, expressed his condolences with practiced sincerity. But there was one patient who would change everything. Her name was Clara. She was young, vibrant, and full of life despite the tumor lodged in her brain. When Gabriel reviewed her case, he felt a strange unease. Her chart detailed her determination to fight, her refusal to let the diagnosis define her. She had written a note in the margins of her intake form. "Life is a miracle. I'm not done with mine yet." For reasons he couldn't explain, Those words lingered in his mind. The day of Clara's surgery arrived, and Gabriel prepared as he always did. The operating room was a temple, and he was its high priest. Clara lay unconscious on the table, her head shaved and marked for incision. The nurses and anesthesiologists moved with rehearsed efficiency, but Gabriel was acutely aware of the weight in his chest. As he made the first cut, his hands faltered for the briefest moment. He steadied himself and continued, his movements precise and deliberate. Midway through the procedure, the whispering returned. The familiar urge to introduce a flaw, to create another masterpiece of destruction, gnawed at him. He could already see how it would unfold. A slight nick to an artery, a slow bleed that would escape detection until it was too late. The thought exhilarated and repulsed him in equal measure. For the first time he hesitated. As Gabriel worked, he found himself fixated on Clara's note. "Life is a miracle," the phrase repeated in his mind, a mantra that clashed with his darker impulses. His hands moved automatically, performing the intricate dance of the surgery. When the tumor was removed and the final suture placed, Gabriel stepped back, his chest heaving. Clara's surgery was flawless, her life preserved, but the unease did not dissipate. In the days that followed, Gabriel found himself haunted by Clara's case. He reviewed her post-operative scans obsessively, searching for any sign of error. Her recovery was remarkable. She was discharged within weeks, her prognosis excellent. Gabriel should have felt relieved, even triumphant, but instead he felt hollow. He realized that Clara had disrupted the delicate balance he had maintained for so long. She had survived not because of his skill, but because he had chosen to let her live. This realization unraveled him. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, demanding that he restore the equilibrium. Gabriel's next surgeries were executed with ruthless precision, each patient's fate meticulously calculated. But the thrill was gone, replaced by a gnawing emptiness. Clara's words echoed in his mind, a reminder of the humanity he had buried beneath his obsession. One night, unable to sleep, Gabriel drove to the hospital and accessed Clara's file. Her follow-up appointments confirmed her continued recovery. She had even written a letter to the surgical team, thanking them for giving her a second chance at life. Gabriel read the letter repeatedly, his chest tightening with an emotion he couldn't name. For the first time, he questioned the path he had chosen. Was his obsession worth the lives it had claimed? Could he ever undo the damage he had wrought? The answer came to him in the form of a final act. Gabriel knew he could not continue as he was. The darkness within him had consumed too much, left too many scars. He resolved to perform one last surgery on himself. In the dead of night, he entered an empty operating room and prepared the instruments. He anesthetized himself, his movements deliberate, and lay on the table. The monitors beeped steadily as he made the first incision. Gabriel's final moments were a study in contrasts. The man who had wielded the scalpel with godlike precision now lay vulnerable beneath its blade. As his vision blurred and his consciousness faded, he felt a strange sense of peace. For the first time, he was free from the whispers, the obsession, the darkness. In his mind's eye, he saw Clara's note, her words a beacon of light in the abyss. When Gabriel's body was discovered the next morning, the hospital was thrown into chaos. Investigations unearthed the truth of his actions, the lives he had taken in his quest for control. His legacy was shattered, his name tarnished. But among the wreckage, Clara's letter remained, a testament to the miracle of life, and the man who had, however briefly, chosen to honor it.